It's obvious for each and every one of us that things are changing and evolving extremely fast. So our next speaker will tell us, will try to tell us, how do we prepare for this kind of future? So please welcome JODY Turner, Innovation Consultant from CultureofFuture, our next speaker.
Thank you.
JODY?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
A few seconds.
Yes. Hello, hello. Hi. Excuse me.
Do you think are we able to adapt or?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
the answer is yes.
Do you want me up
So
here
that's
now, or do you want me to wait?
No. Stage is yours. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Hi. Hello. So my work is very commercial driven, and of course my heart, like all of you, is very much about where we're going as a people and as a world. So I will mix the two together, and that's why I call it brand anthropology, which is what's the human element, and also future archaeology. What are we creating today that is leading to tomorrow? And of course, there are many scary things we are creating today, but I will try to focus on a positive human story. Let me get my orientation here. Okay. So technology is threaded through everything. We are competing with each other through technology today, and you are in the perfect place as you embark on your life of digital. But as a result, we are redesigning and redefining what it is to live, work, and play. And that gives us an opportunity together to create the new world through what we are building together. But my focus is, how did we get here? How did we get here? My idea is, of course, along with many other thinkers, that we are driven by choices that we make together. And we've moved from the Industrial Revolution, where we built things in a very linear fashion. And we created a world in which we honored machines over nature. And if you think about it, we are kind of starting to come back to that in a new way with augmented living. But let's not skip the middle part here. Now we're in the crowd-shared revolution. And for us, that means that there are new ways of being. So if we've moved, and I'm speaking mostly about the Western way of influencing, which is about you have to have money to make money, to do what you love. And now, with the whole youthful revolution of digital and cross-sharing, where it's becoming more circular in our information together, and less linear, less mechanistic, less hierarchical, we end up having a new model of, let me be who I am, and share that with each other, and do what I believe in as I make my living, and have what I want to have. I define new ways of having. So if we look at the Western model, it's really about keeping up with the Joneses in terms of the whole elder, my generation. We were all building out a bigger and bigger world within a power structure, big politics. And in the West, we did big brands, big luxury, big cars. And now we are seeing how that doesn't necessarily bring us happiness. And so those that are living in the mass world are seeing now that we want co-sharing, and we want an ability to express who we are versus what others tell us to be. And we can begin to create that together through this crowd-shared economy. And it's sparking a whole reinventage, which is really about craft and building and making. We realize we've lost a lot in this mechanistic industrial revolution, in this cube-a-day living, And we want to remember the craft and the make, and we want to remember nature. Now, maybe here you haven't lost nature as much as we have in the West, but this is something we're beginning to remember and honor. And then all of a sudden there was data. So this is the big disruption in our world, is data. How many people have seen the WeChat mountain or have heard of the 10-cent data mountain that has been built? So as you know, yes, and how many people know WeChat out of China? Yes. And it's a system in which it provides living for people through the digital world. They've expanded music license, movie license, you can shop, instant translation of currency, and it's in partnership with the Chinese government. And this data is continually being fed to the Chinese government, and people willingly sign up for this because the services that they get for free are quite vast. And it allows the Chinese consumer to be in touch with the latest and the greatest. And so as a result, this is the data mountain being created. Now, why would we have these huge data mountains, or why would Microsoft put their data center at the bottom of the ocean? Security. And also, these systems of using nature to cool and protect are smarter and more energy efficient. And now we're faced with the augmented potential, which we were talking about today. So imagine that people are afraid of moving into the augmented world. If you think about the futurist at Volvo, I asked him, Arik Domus, what are you working on? And of course, they're working on amazing autonomous vehicles. They're going very electric, because many, many cities are trying to say, we don't want this traffic problem we have. And as Ford has said, it doesn't matter if you have a fast car, if you're in gridlock. So we're working on all of these kind of ecological solutions. So I asked the futurist at Volvo, what are you working on? And he said, ethics. So ethics. Now we have a young woman who has her master's, and she has created the augmented thumb. So I think this is the future, is really less about embedding, because we're afraid of that, and more about augmenting. So if you look at here, she has created a thumb, so you have an extra thumb on your hand. And she puts sensors linked through to your feet, and so you can control with this extra thumb through your toes. So this is what she developed for her master's, and is now in the process of developing it for our world. And how did she think of it? She said she actually just went like this. What would it be like to have a hand with an extra thumb? So as we begin to build onto us, and we're finding that one of the most difficult things in robots is touch and grasp. So this is what she's also working on. But how did we get here? There are many models that we talk about with our brains, and one is left brain is linear or engineer, and right brain is creative and expressive through art and creativity. And so we've lived these kind of binary models for a number of years. Left brain thinking, right brain thinking, it's not an actual reality, a reality in neurology, and yet we have chosen to live this way. Well, with this kind of opening up and the loss of the hierarchy on the left brain, your left side, we are then opening, we've been living a creative maker right brain, but what happens when we integrate the two? Right now we're in the middle of that. And in the middle of that is this list here of what we're experiencing through digital living. Emergence over authority. We have an opportunity to divest through blockchain, through a number of ways of living, to circumvent authority. And we have a number of ways of pulling people in versus pushing products to them. And we have a number of ways of inviting engagement versus show up here at this point. So you will have this list, and you can kind of explore this on your own. So these are the things that are happening today. So we have, over on this side, we have Virgin Atlantic. He is 2 flights away from taking people into space. And we have the woman who is creating a pressurized spacesuit for that flight. We have this man in the middle, who is Sinovation, Chinese educator. There is a new level of education in China now, sponsored and amplified by the government, which means it's going to happen. And they are teaching people AI and how to work within the AI systems. And so from birth upward, AI is now a major part of the education system. So this says a lot about China and where they're going. We've got on this side over here, we see people are starting to implement VR workout machines in the US. It's not mass, but it's starting. Working out as you're watching virtual reality. These are things happening now. And IMAX theaters in the US are starting to include VR virtual reality experiences. So we're starting to implement that in the US. L'Oreal has a sticker you can put on your thumb or on your wrist, which will tell you if you've had too much sunscreen. How many people have heard of that? Okay, so this is happening now. However, when I speak with people at L'Oreal, they're saying it doesn't work perfectly, but we are doing things, trying to stretch toward the future. L'Oreal t-shirt, you can stream a video and it will show up on your t-shirt, because we now have digital thin screens. Epson printer, it's just the everyday clunky printer that you have in your office. Well, now they've built glasses in which you can control drones. And so they're starting to work with your glasses controlling your computers. And this is just the simple printer. And in lower right, we have a robot in a Texas hospital that does a lot of work, disseminating medicines, etc. So we've got functioning robots in hospitals. We have been so cut off from nature, and we are trying to remember nature, but now we have an understanding through the blood what we need to eat. How many people have heard of Habit? Yes, US startup, and they test your blood, and through your DNA, they will tell you, are you allergic to carbohydrates? Are you allergic, do you have gluten issues? And you can get a whole map of what is good for you to eat. $300 US, and you will know what is good for your body. We also know that we've destroyed the microbiome within our own system. So we have people that have been creating through mushrooms and various fungus and various parts of the earth ways of rebuilding our internal microbiome. And so that's very important today in the health of people. Some people are actually doing surgery to replace some people's parts of intestine into other people's, because we are realizing we're having trouble digesting. A startup has just released its first and delivered to the door its first full body scan, 3D body scan. And it's in alignment with a US store called Nordstrom. So you can look in your mirror and see, in this mirror, and see different outfits, etc. But you can also begin to understand your own body, what's going on with it health-wise. And lastly, the world is so much bigger than we ever imagined. Right now, of course, 4 years ago, we found multiple tribes within Brazil that we did not know existed, that have no contact with humanity. There are about 100 that are left. And we also actually have photos of the giant squid. You've heard all of these things. The giant monster does actually exist. And we are learning things about animals, such as elephants communicate through their feet, through the sounds and the resonance. So there is so much more in our world here for us to learn. And there's a game out that you can play and have it related. It is related to the actual migratory patterns of animals in Africa. And so now we're connecting with the world in new ways. Any questions on that? I hope that's interesting. So this is what's coming tomorrow. So tomorrow we are beginning to, this is eBay, has a brain sensor, and it's watching you as you look at art and as you buy things. This is existing today. This is coming up. We have holographic representations of what we draw. In the future, we'll be able to draw something and have a holographic representation. And most likely, because 3D printers are becoming less expensive, we'll be able to print things in our home, including food. And IDEO, how many people know IDEO? I've done work with them, and they are a think tank. And they did a project with Mercedes where they looked at the autonomous car and how the car itself became a mobile health system. So if we're able to truly listen to our own pulse and know what our blood pressure is today through our Fitbit or through our watch, then we know that we will be having stations within our lives that will be addressing our health in certain, with preferences moving from here to the chair. And that's when the mobile phone becomes less important and we have more object living. And here we have facial recognition, algorithm art on the face that prevents you from being seen by the powers that be through video. And as we're being watched here and we're being videoed, if you have this algorithm paint, which is available, you will be able to not be recognized. And the smallest computer, smaller than a grain of rice, University of Michigan. Now it started out as the size of a grain of rice. And then another university created something smaller. And now this one is even smaller. So there's a competition for the smallest computer. And here it is today. Where will it go to next? In Japan, the University of Tokyo has just expressed that they're going to build now this elevator in space. They've been testing, and now here they are in the actual construction. And there is a new thin skin that has a display that you'll be able to wear as skin on the hand. So I have so many more of these, but I just wanted to kind of express, are things changing? Yes, they are. So how do we know? Now here I get into more of my research. That was more like, this is what is available. I've been doing a lot of deep research, and of course this is Western generational, and the global generational break is really through technology. Those before technology and that after technology. And so this is my generation, the boomer, and in this generation it was about building the big power structure of brands and rebelling and claiming your own identity. So identity is very important. Gen X, I worked with Nike in building the sneaker culture. How many people have heard of the sneaker culture? And so at Nike, we were really focusing on the smaller Gen X culture, and that was the rebellious against the big, into the small details of design, into the small details of customization, and into the small details of how you create your uniform and your ID through special touches. And sometimes secret touches that only you understood, or others that you're in communication with through the digital realm and community realm understood. So I was there when they were building Nike ID, doing Nike Plus with Apple, and also doing the Live Strong benefit bracelet. And of course, every generation is rebelling against the next one. So the boomers were the power structure of identity. The Gen X was expressing through niche design elements. And then Gen Y rebelled against the preciousness of niche design. Design became everywhere. Design thinking, it exploded. And now it's about hands-on raw craft. going and traveling the world to parts of nature that may disappear, or maybe going to Chernobyl and seeing the destruction. We're in a new age where Gen Y is really about looking at how they can publish journalistically their vision of the world. And Gen Z, what is that? Well, the difference between Boomer to Gen X to Gen Y is that they are actual parent to children. Now, Gen Z is a younger sibling of Gen Y. So see, generational change is happening faster. And many believe Gen Z is the last generation because it's an integral generation. It integrates everything from above, and it picks the best of what it wants. Oh, I want luxe. No, I don't. And I want design niche. Oh, and I want social community. And oh, I want to hack it and make it my own. So we know they're our future, but are they our future because of consumption, or just because we've left them with many problems to solve? Are they our future because they are a large generation of people that can buy a lot? Well, they are a family consumption influencer. They're an influencer because they're online getting the best deal. They know what's going on out there, and they influence their parents on what to buy. But is that the reason why? No. We have a great many issues, and I would say this generation is set up to deal with those issues, but maybe they'll sue us for what we've done to the planet. They're that savvy and smart, and I would recommend it, actually. Digital natives will be going into a world that is not prepared for them. So they are preparing themselves through the empowerment of digital. They understand that the choices they make today have a great impact on tomorrow. And to me, this is what future archaeology is. We are designing things that we're going to be living into tomorrow. And this is vital. And Gen Z understands that because they've witnessed choices we've made. So, what are a few global companies that are actually designing for the future? Airbnb, of course. And so here we see a quote that I love, and that is, "Today and tomorrow is about creating ideas that run on the media of people." So much of what companies did in the past was unlock natural resources to build the stuff we wanted. Well, today, it's new platforms of unlocking human potential to be the people we want to be. So you're in such a vital place. You are creating and working on these platforms that really are empowering people. Now, when I worked at Nike, I really worked with the generational model. And it was about Boomer and how we focused on the hero. You know, the sports hero, the savior. And that would have been Jordan, for instance. Or at the time, it was Ronaldo. So the sports hero. Hero is aspirational, but we're moving from the aspirational model to Gen X, which is everybody is an athlete. I want to customize what works for me. To millennial, in which it's innovating for everybody. And so Nike's pretty smart about how they innovate for the body. And what does that look like? I mean, it's my job to give practical examples, and we call them signals in trending. So experiential plus digital. Nike flagship stores now have it so that you can walk in and you can run and you'll get readouts of everything about you. And you can link your run to that store and to your identity through this preference choice. Now we have actual just digital store. And the first one opened in LA, Digital Nike. It's a store that only deals with the digital aspects of your your workout experience. And how could they support it without having an actual product? Membership, subscription. So now people are subscribing to the digital experience. Not a free app, though I'm sure the app is free, but the experience and the collective community engagement beyond that is about subscription. So this is the new model that all companies are going toward, becoming a member of that company in order to have an extensive digital experience. So now how is that going to look like for what you create? And Adidas, and I've done work with Adidas, they have the All Day app, and that allows you to have information throughout your day as to what you might need in very small snippets. And this indicates where we're going to in digital communication. Small, important coaching moments. So brand as coach. Small, important coaching moments and bite-sized bits of information that have to be highly visual and highly symbol-driven. And of course, Mini has shifted. If cars are now such a big problem, as they have become, and traffic, what will Mini do? Well, Mini stands for small living. So they've started to design small living spaces, and they've started to, this is a Shanghai community that they're designing and building that's about collective living for the future. It's like, okay. How many people know Unity Earth? So if you're a millennial and you realize that the future is not what you thought it was going to be, you're trying to live a certain way because you're an activist and you feel like the world should be going in this way, what do? Well, you do a Kickstarter campaign, or you do a Fund Me campaign, and you build your own product. Here are some Swedish Gen Y, millennial youth, who said, we are not going to build anything within the current manufacturing system or retail system. We're going to 3D print our product. We're going to get millions through Fund Me, and we're going to design it through a VR crowd culture. So the first thing they designed was a VR system in which they could drive and design and have the experience, and then they connected with a community of people who gave feedback. You see in the upper right, and they recorded the entire experience. What was the result? The result was a 3D printed electric car that they are selling now in China and India. And it's a car that can be delivered to your door. So I'm going to talk about research, and I hope this just doesn't bore you to pieces, but this is how I get this information. And why is it important to know how we get the information? It's important because we need to know if this is accurate or not, these predictions that we are going into a hacker-maker phase of the world in which people will be receiving more and more materials to make their own world. We'll be going more and more away from, we'll be decentralized, flattening, toward working at home in which we have the empowerment to create our own products. How true is this? Well, I always look at the mega challenges and the mega trends, and then I look at the macro regional, what's happening, and then I look at local action. I just came off of a 3-month study in New York City where I did STEEP. How many people know STEEP? Where you look at the social, technological, environmental, economic, and political systems, and I did it of 10 regions. So we're talking, I did 5 weeks of the deep study of what's happening in these areas. And then you look at case studies across industry, and you intersect those. And then you look at the emotionality of people and what they're coming up with, which was somewhat the first part of the presentation. And then you look at the synthesis of that story. So you have to be a storyteller as well. Not only data and story, and then you create a plan for action. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Boom, STEEP. So these are the summation sentences direct global summations of the steep regional data study. I'm going to give you these. So I created sentences from all this deep study. And I was assigned to do this. Do the deep study, create the sentence. What? How can I create one sentence? But you'll have this, and so you'll get this tour around the world on your own. Then they asked me, my boss in New York City, to then create a provocative statement about future companies from this steep. You will have this in hand. You are receiving this. And from that, I defined what the big issues in the world are today and into the future. And here they are. We all know these because we all experience the impact of these. And these are then my design solutions, meaning if you follow this, put this up as a poster, and you implement this within your business, this will likely help you to have better outcome within your products and services. Let's focus on 2 of them. How are we doing on time? Okay. So here are 2 of them. Everyone is a technologist means that we have to give people the opportunity to engage in new technologies, co-build, and share the story. So if Gen Y really is going to be hacking their way into their future, we have to provide opportunities for everyone to get involved in how the product and the service evolves. And the second one I'm focusing on here is personalized niche. What does that look like today? It's not the customized Nike ID of the past. What it is today is we have to give an opportunity and the ability to choose customized identity within community. Not about the product, but within the community. So I did 4 organizations and I looked at them. Yes, these chairs are hard, and I apologize. Yesterday I was shifting around in them. And I'm going to talk about 2. I'm going to talk about Tencent, and I'm going to talk about Unilever, and Disney is being talked about in another studio. So Unilever is a very successful company, and they're really based on really meaningful values before profit, and it has really worked for them. They have a sustainability system that is leading the world. I'm impressed. In terms of they acquire companies not for what they produce, but for their data. Meaning, here they've purchased Dollar Shave Club, and they've spent so much money on it. Why? Because they want to move into men's grooming, and this has a database of people who are into men's grooming. So now people are buying and acquiring companies for their data or social set. But what I find the most interesting is how they help their internal teams innovate. So we know that R&D spending, research and development is down, and yet they're highly innovative. How has that happened? And I'm going to read this because I think this is important. They host Foundry pilots. They have internal startups. They host Foundry hacks for specific briefs. They look at it and they look at how they could hack it like a Gen Y and do manufacturing differently, do everything differently. They have Foundry ideas and creative, drawing upon crowdsourced ideas. And they have democratized events in which they bring all of the people together multiple times a month to share these ideas in a big party. Now, I kind of want to work there. Oh wait, let's see, did we? Yeah. So Tencent, as I've already said, provides digital ecosystem for free for all of its users. And that is in order to garner all of this data that is then given to the Chinese government openly and freely. And the Chinese government supports Tencent and WeChat. And this is what WeChat is doing, or Tencent. They're investing in AI heavily. They're protecting their premium data, developing it. They are creating the data mountain. And they are getting a broad ownership of nimble global HQs. world dominance, anyone? And yet, at the same time, they're upgrading traditions and rituals, which are very important to the social fabric of the Chinese people. How many have received a Lai Si packet, the red packet with a gift in it? My ex-husband's Chinese, so I've received many Lai Si packets, no longer, sadly, but they are the gift that old elders give to youngers that have money in it for any special occasion, but particularly Chinese New Year. WeChat, I mean, and there's such waste from these packets that can't be recycled. And now WeChat has turned it into a digital system. And we thought there would be pushback against that, but no. So see, serving people where it really matters to them. So here are some resources for you, and I want you to have some takeaway reports. And one of the most important one, I think, aside from this one, is sparksandhoney.com. And that's who I'm working with right now, and they have a free trust, authenticity, and consumer report that they did for the World Economic Forum. So go ahead, look at Sparks and Honey, and look at their /reports, and you can then download. They have an AI report, they have a generational report, and they're like smartsters, so it'll be a really interesting read. The other one is, how many people know the Futures Center in London? So they have some free reports to download as well about the future is, how do they put it? They say the future is kind of a mixed bag, and they define it well. How many people know JWT Intelligence? It's pretty much the go-to for agencies about cultural lifestyle trends. And then Trend Hunter out of Canada is really very great for finding signals or specific things about products and services. And here's some books. Of course, we've got to have the books. If you want to really do future work, here are the books. And there's my Twitter handle. And thank you so very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Jody.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are any questions from the public about trends, about technology, about... Yeah? Okay, here you go.
If it's enough time, okay. Hello, great presentation, thank you. I would like to have a question because you said that your perspective is more Western or more global and more mature countries, let's say. I'm working in the region Africa, Middle East and India, which is actually the emerging developing market, and also working on trends. So I was wondering to have your perspective because we can see that technology and digital things have influenced a lot how the new generations are behaving.
Yeah.
And we see as well technology adoption quite big in the emerging markets. So practically we have some markets where the consumer is not so mature, so it has some, they are some years back. But on the other hand, they are part of this digitalized world.
Yes.
Would you say that this digitalization across the countries will have implication as well in harmonizing, I don't know, and going in same directions?
Well, I did a look at Middle East, and I've done a lot of work with China in technology and a lot of work with, and some with Africa. And so what I noticed in Africa, and this is what we found, is that it's resource-driven, and it is more entrepreneurial, and it is the first adopter of using mobile phones in varieties of ways. So they will be an early adopter of things if it is presented to them in small bits, like today it will serve me. Not serving me a week from now, or, so they will use technology, particularly say Nigeria is an incredible country that's really exploding with creativity, and Africa is really starting to see their own value and their cultural give. And so with that, they live day to day, maybe 15 minutes from now. And that is a different way of living. And so to build technology that helps them to partition Like they'll have a phone for a short amount of time, and if it serves them in what they're doing, because they're very entrepreneurial. So the drawback on that for them, of course, is that China owns Nigeria, and financially, because it's the place with resources. And yet, and so you would not know that unless you did research. So whenever I'm in Africa, I always say, build out your engineering abilities so that you don't have to rely on others to come and do that for you and then take your resources. So in terms of digital, I would focus on the small. In Middle East, they are big adopters of wearables. And so if you link that, they love wearables. And so if you link that to halal living and travel, that's huge right now in the Middle East. People are wanting to get out and see the world, but they want to be served through their own diets and their own ways of living. So that's important. In terms of China, it's just vast, so I'd have to have another conversation with you about that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.